Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio TV. This is your host James, and I'm super excited to have a returning guest today. It's been a long time since we spoke, and we're going to talk to Mark Amaru Pinkham. We're going to talk about his latest book. Mark has got two awesome websites. He has GnosticTemplars.org and SacredSitesJourneys.com for his tour to sacred sites around the world. And as I just learned, he runs trips to Ireland, so we're going to have some interesting stuff to talk about. Actually, I wasn't even aware of that the last time I spoke to Mark. Mark is a prolific researcher and into all things esoteric as well. First of all, let's bring our guest on today. Hi, Mark. First of all, very welcome to the show.
Hi, James. Nice to be back with you.
Great to see you this time as well, Mark. We didn't get to see each other last time, so we're on the TV link today. Mark, tell us about your new book. I think this is incredibly interesting, and it kind of gels in with a few things I'm interested in too.
Well, it's based on the Hopi legend of Palatkwapi. Palatkwapi is an ancient city that was built by the Star People, which the Hopis today know as the Kachinas. And they say in their legends that the Hopi clans, once they reached the continent of North America, it said that they came island hopping across the Pacific. Once they reached North America, they divided up into clans, and they went on migrations throughout the Western Hemisphere. And eventually they met back together in the place they're living now in northern Arizona, and they compared notes. Okay, where have you been, and what was it like? And invariably, they found that most all the clans had been to this sacred city called Palatkwapi at some point.
Sure.
And they talked about how it was a great megalithic sacred city where the Kachinas taught them the secrets, the mysteries of the universe, the mysteries of human evolution, and so many of the rituals and sacred dances that the Hopis do today were taught at that time by these Kachinas. So the Kachinas, apparently, these ETs, were in physical body right down to the time of the European invasion in North America, which is not that long ago.
Wow.
But anyway, I did a bunch of research once I heard the legend of Palatkwapi, because, first of all, Palatkwapi means the red house. And, Sedona is like living in a big red house.
Sure. Granted.
Gigantic red house, right? Everything's red here because of the red rocks. And so I thought there was probably some connection, because I also know that Sedona is very, very sacred to the Hopis. And then I started studying the path that these different clans took when they left Palatkwapi as they were moving or traveling to where they are today in Hopi land. I consistently studied that route of all the different clans, and I found out that the route was pretty much the same, and then in each description of the route there were these place names. Well, today those place names are the cities or the towns in Arizona. So,
wow.
So all I had to do was basically start in Hopi land and retrace the steps of these different clans, and it led right back here. So it was pretty obvious this was the place. So one reason that I did this research, and one reason that I believe that Sedona is Palatkwapi, because I have been seeing temples here since I first started coming here back in 1987. Initially, I went into Boynton Canyon, which is the largest vortex here, and I was drawn to climb the side of the canyon to a ridge, and I sat down and I meditated and prayed, and apparently my third eye became open. I opened my eyes, and everywhere I looked, I saw temples, incredible temples. It's like temples that were built out of the red rock. And a lot of them were carved with certain images. They had symbols covering them. I even saw statues that were carved out of the red rock.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could think of was, wow, this seems to be a civilization, or a lost civilization. They certainly don't talk about this guidebook for Sedona.
Sure.
So I examined these temples from this ridge, or this ledge rather, for a while. And then I said, well, I've got to check this out, because they all looked they looked all physical. I said, well, maybe I can get into them. Maybe they have interest. I climbed down from my perch. And so I went looking for these temples. And then I would see one for, let's say, 100 yards away. And then as soon as I got up close to it, it sounded like poof. It just kind of disappeared. And I couldn't find it. It was gone. And this kept happening time and time again. It actually happened for the following 12 hours, because I actually spent the night in Boynton Canyon. And pretty soon I started reading the writing on the wall. Well, I'm not supposed to find these temples on the third dimension this time, and I'm certainly not supposed to enter any of them. Well, anyway, long story short, this began a long journey for me over the course of 27 years, during which I learned what these temples were all about. I learned who the builders of them were. I get to see those temples and many more in Boynton Canyon. I even saw what I call the court of the king. I saw all these different things, and I came to an understanding of them being part of Palatkwapi. And once I had come to all these realizations, then I figured, well, it's time to write a book about this.
Sure.
That's when I wrote this book, Sedona City of the Star People.
Let me jump in there, Mark. Sedona City of the Star People, Court of the King of the World is the name of the title. Tell me about the emphasis on the king. Who's the king of the world? The Court of the King of the World is the subtitle. I think this is pertinent to explain this, Mark.
Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was directed to one part of the canyon that I hadn't really explored. And I found this trail that I hadn't noticed. I'd probably been in that canyon 100, 200 times by then. I never noticed this trail. So I took this trail, and it took me up the side of the canyon to a different perch where I could see a whole different part of the canyon. And in front of me were all these what looked like temples arranged in a horseshoe pattern, and it looked like a court. That's all I could think of. My first impression was, I'm in a court. This seems to be, and right in the center of all these temples, it appeared to be this gigantic throne. And I'm thinking, well, golly, I mean, is this the court of the king? And then I could see the temples. You see, the thing of it was, James, what I realized with these temples eventually is that the first time that I saw the temples, I was seeing them in their perfection when they were first built. Now, those temples are still there in Boynton Canyon, but they're in ruins. What has happened to them is, over thousands of years, Sedona has been covered with water at least 10 different times. And it's waterware that has ruined these temples, but their foundations are still here. And so when I saw the court of the king, well, those temples weren't perfect, but the foundations were still there. And at some point, I actually got to see those temples in their perfection. And then it was very clear to me that, yes, this is the court of the king. And so it was about the same time, James, that I was down in the Andes. I was studying shamanism down there, and I was working with a Wachuma shaman. And the Wachuma shamans, they take a liquid made out of a cactus, the Wachuma or San Pedro cactus, and they drink it down, and it expands their consciousness. And they can see things and experience things that we're not normally aware of. They can see into other dimensions.
Wow.
So I had been training with this man, apprenticing with him for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And at this point, we were up high, about 13,000 feet in the Andes, and we were doing a private ceremony, just he and I. And so I drank down the witchuma, which turned out to be pretty potent on that day. Mm. And almost immediately, I was transported in another dimension.
Mm. Sorry to jump in, Mark. Amaru is a name that was given to you as well, isn't that correct?
That's right, yeah. Amadu means serpent.
So that's your middle name, Mark.
Or serpent.
Mark Amaru.
My full shamanic name is Amadu Puma, but I've shortened it to Amadu, and I use it as a middle name now.
Wow.
Right. And that's that came out of the training.
Gotcha.
We've been, Andrea, my wife and I have been going down to Peru for about more than 20 years, and we've had training with many different teachers, many different shamans. Hmm. But anyway, to get back to the story,
sure.
I was transported in this dimension where everywhere I looked, there was eyes. It was like thousands and thousands of eyes were surrounding me. It was like all the forms of nature had opened their eyes. They'd woken up, you know. And so I was looking at the eyes and I was like, wait a minute, there's something a little bit different. They look like human eyes, but not completely like human. And then,
wow.
then it struck me, well, those are the eyes on a peacock feather. Okay. and then I, lo and behold, they were on peacock feathers. And then I traced the peacock feathers to actual peacocks. And I realized I was surrounded by thousands of peacocks. Everything was peacock. And even the mountains, the gigantic, snow-capped mountains turned into these, monstrous peacocks.
Sure.
There I was. So I was in the land of the peacock for a whole day. And all I knew was I was in the land of the peacock. I didn't know what the land of the peacock was. I just knew it was the land of the peacock. And so, as soon as I got home, after the ceremony, after I returned to the U.S., I started researching, well, what the heck is this? Where was I? And I studied all these different traditions. The only tradition that knew what I had experienced, that could give me any information, were the Yazidis of northern Iraq. And what they say in their tradition is that the peacock angel, which is their great deity, the peacock angel, he came to this planet thousands and thousands of years ago, well, millions of years ago, when there wasn't vegetation, there wasn't life here, and it was, even the ground was still soft. He came to give it color and life. He came down as this gigantic peacock, and he landed in a place known as Laylish today in northern Iraq, which is the most sacred place of the Yazidi. And when he landed, he spread his peacock feathers all around the planet, totally covering them. And that's what I experienced. These were etheric feathers, you see. But what happened was that those etheric feathers eventually crystallized to become all the forms of nature. Well, the Yazidis recognize this peacock angel as this king of the world. All right? That's one of the names that they have. They call him Tausi Malek, which means the peacock king. Mm-hmm. And when I was in this court, one of the things that I recognized when I was in this court in Boynton Canyon is that a lot of the temples were covered over with peacock symbology.
Wow.
I mean, could this be the court of the peacock king? And then I started studying more about Palatkwapi, and I learned that Masao, the patron of the Hopis, the great patron, they call him the king of the fourth world, right? And in this court, you can see all kinds of symbology related to him. And the legend was that he lived in Palatkwapi. Well, the last thing I did was I compared the legend between Masao and the peacock angel. Mm-hmm. They're almost identical. They are the same being.
Wow.
And then what I did, James, is I studied all the traditions around the world, and so many of them talk about a king of the world in ancient times that existed, and in each case, his legend was very, very similar to the legends of Masao and Peacock Angel.
I think, Mark, that we're living in an age now where, travel is more common spread. So is the internet with research and legends and mythology. I mean, nobody knew anything about other parts of the world 100 years ago. You just didn't know. And nowadays, it's like mythology and legends and history has all come to life because it's all comparative. There's comparative mythology, comparative history, and what we really think of, cultures from Iraq or Sedona or any other parts of the globe is really being re-evaluated and revolutionized, really. There's photos of the Yazidis visiting Sedona in your book, Mark. What was their experience of it?
Well, the first Yazidi, I brought a few different Yazidis here. The first Yazidi that came, he was actually in the family of the Yazidi prince. So he was essentially Yazidi royalty. And I took him around Sedona and introduced him to the court of the king. And he said at the time that there were so many Yazidis in refugee camps, which they are in northern Iraq, and that they want to leave, they want to come to America, they want to come to a different country. And he said at the time, he said that a lot of them are going to want to come here because they're leaving Lailish, which was their sacred place, which they associated with the Peacock Angel, but they could come here, which has the court of the Peacock Angel.
Wow.
And so he said, this could be the Western Lailish. Well, there's that potential. And
sure.
Soon after that, I took his son, who lives in Phoenix, and a big group of Yazidis, and we all walked in there together into the court of the king, and we all climbed up the side of the canyon and looked out, and they were amazed, of course. I mean, how could you not be? And their final understanding was that, yeah, this is the court of the king. We want to come back here. This is a very, very special place, and we definitely want to come back here. So it's amazing that in the end, it feels like, James, that one reason I was shown this court of the king is because there were going to be so many Yazidis that were going to be dispossessed of their homeland, looking for a new home, and this gives them some place that will be familiar to them and feel like home because it has the court of the king here, the court of the Peacock Kings. Sure. So it all makes sense to me. And right now we are working. We formed called a Yazidi Hindu coalition to try to bring Yazidis over here. I'm working with Representative Tuzigoot of Hawaii, that's very much interested in bringing Yazidi refugees over here. And in fact, some of the Arizona tribes, the Zuni and the Navajo, said we'll accept a bunch of them, bring them on over. So wow. Essentially, we could have a lot of Yazidis here in Arizona very soon.
Let's bring in some modern politics, Mark. I mean, Yazidis are under attack for, I don't know what acronym to use, ISIS or ISIL. I don't even know what the difference is. I'm not that up on it. But I mean, I know it's a war-torn region now. This is why the refugees are there. But I mean, how do they feel about being persecuted? I guess they're being persecuted. Are they looking for the savior? Is their spirituality under attack? Is this why? Is there an onslaught against them for spirituality?
Well, there is, and there has been. They say that there's been 73 genocides against them over their history. 73.
Wow.
And wow. This is the 74th. Most of the genocides have come at the hands of the Muslims, who have threatened them. They would come into their territory and say, either convert to Islam or you're dead. We're going to kill you. They've done that time and time again. And now they're doing it again in the form of ISIS. So this isn't anything new to these Yazidis. However, it's a little bit more intense than most of the other 72 or 73 genocides. For one thing, their towns have been destroyed, their homes have been destroyed, they have nothing to return to. And so now you've got 16 refugee camps holding more than 200,000 Yazidis. That's a lot,
Wow.
But they are used to it. The Yazidis, the Muslims believe that the peacock angel is Satan. In their tradition, that's how they see him. I mean, he's not, and what they know about him is very distorted. But that's their belief.
In a way,
change that.
In a way, Mark, I can try to draw a parallel to the Dogon, who have resisted to convert to any outside influence. I mean, they have their own oral history, stroke mythology, whatever you want to call it. They refuse to be controlled or convert to Islam. All the countries around it are converting to Islam. And they have this ideology with links to star people as well. And in a way, probably quite different, but in a way, I think there's many star cultures like there is many cultures on this earth. Why not? Like, it's not like there's one group here, but in a way they're being persecuted again. Africa, it's been the top of it anyway. There's like a rampant virus spreading across it, and it's convert or die, and it's like.
Well, they do take some comfort in knowing that the prophecies are that the peacock angel will be returning again, and they even give you a number with 11,000 extraterrestrials. He's going to be returning. And what's interesting is that the Hopis have almost identical prophecies.
Really?
They say that the king of the world is going to be returning with many extraterrestrials, and one reason that they believe that now is because starting in the 70s, they were getting all these kind of UFO sightings on the reservation, and they've had them ever since. And according to the prophecy, that represents the beginning of when the king is going to be returning with the extraterrestrials. And the one thing that I have found studying the king of the world in the different traditions is that they say that there's two places primarily that they associate him with. One's the Pleiades and the other is Venus. He's even known in more, we say, New Age circles as being Sanat Kumara, which they say came from Venus, or the Pleiades. The Hindus who worship Sanat Kumara, they worship him under the name of Kartikeya, which comes from this Kritika, which is Sanskrit for Pleiades. And so Kartikeya means son of the Pleiades. And so most of these traditions you find he's coming from the Pleiades, and he'll be coming back again from the Pleiades with his huge entourage. On the Hopi reservation, you find a couple petroglyphs, carvings of ancient flying machines that these ETs, these Kachinas, arrived in ancient times. And one of them was actually carved by Masao himself, because he flew around in a machine, a flying machine. And they say that the one that he carved out represents Venus, the Venusians, and that he's a Venusian and he's going to be coming back with a whole entourage from Venus. So there's, you've got the Pleiades and Venus. It's those 2 points in the cosmos that these missionaries and these ETs are going to be coming. They come from before, and they're coming back.
Well, just like the Mayans were obsessed with the Pleiades and Venus as well.
Well, that's very true. And one thing they say about the Pleiades is that our sun is the 8th star of the Pleiades, so we have a very special connection with them. This is why they keep coming here. This is why they came originally, and they keep coming back to assist the evolution of humanity here.
It's incredible. I don't think the Hopi get enough attention. I'm glad to see the book, Mark. I really am. And I just love anything written about the Hopi, because they seem to have... It's like if you talk about Sumerians, I mean, they get so much press these days. And the Dogon, for that matter, as well. And I just think there's a lot of ancient cultures around the world that are still living today, like the Dogon and the Hopi, with, very sophisticated knowledge of our past, and a very great wisdom is still encoded within their oral histories. And I just don't think they get enough attention or enough press, and I think they are wise.
I think that's true. But a lot of that is by design. They don't want to attract a lot of attention to themselves. They're very
wow.
quiet, kind of shy people. But and because of that, they don't advertise a lot. They don't want to bring a lot of attention to themselves. And this is why people don't know that much about them. But that's what I explained. It's kind of the esoteric importance of where they're living in the book, because they were directed there by Masao.
Sure.
And he told them at the time that this is the center of the world. Not only is it the center of the world, but it's the center of the whole entire universe. Right?
Wow.
And he told them at the time that one of their duties, one of their missions on Earth, is to help to keep this world in balance. And in the Hopi legends, it said that 2 Hopi boys went to the poles in order to stabilize the poles. And then you have Masao, and he also had a twin, Pahana, that went to the other side of the world in Tibet in order to keep the planet in balance.
Wow, really?
Yeah, but another way that the Hopis keep the world in balance is through their dances. Since they are in the center of the world, they're living on a huge vortex, the energy of their dances moves through the whole grid system to help balance the Earth. And so they are doing a tremendous service to us all, to everyone on the planet all the time, and we're not even aware of it. I wondered about that when I read that they're center of the world. Well,
center of the universe.
But and center of the universe, especially. Well, I actually went to Hopi land. I've been there a few times, and I had the experience of feeling like I was in the center of the universe. I mean, I've never had that before. Never had it since. It's unbelievable. It felt like
an energy center.
All the energy lines from the whole universe converged right there. But then I started looking into, center of the world. Well, the equator is the center of the world, isn't it? And then, no, it actually is. It's the center of the world, but it's not the center of the land masses of the world.
Wow.
And what I found is what the center of the land masses is a band of latitude, 30 degrees north latitude. Now, if you actually include 10 degrees above and 10 degrees below, so it's a 20.
It's a band. It's not a thin line. It's like a band of it.
It's a band, and within that band is the Hopi reservation, and there's a lot of different places around the world that have in ancient times been associated with the king of the world.
Giza Plateau, I guess. The Giza Plateau, 30 degrees as well.
Exactly. And then you have Jerusalem, which was the King Melchizedek. You've got Eridu and Enki. You've got Lalish. You have Mount Kailash. You have all these different places. Right?
Interesting.
And then what I did is I took the 30-degree band of latitude and I added up the mass, the Earth, the land mass above and below that, and it was in both cases 26 million square miles. So it is directly in the center of the Earth's land mass. So it truly is.
It truly is. That's incredible, Mark. You say that the Sedona is the root chakra of the Earth. How do you arrive at that conclusion? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So, if you study most of the chakra system, and there's many of them, one thing you'll consistently find is the crown chakra is Mount Kailash. Okay, and Mount Kailash is associated with the mythical Mount Meru, which is kind of like its etheric body, you might say, Mount Meru. And so, if you extend a rod through the Earth at this 30-degree latitude through the Earth, you're going to come out pretty close to Sedona, Arizona.
Wow.
Which is on the other side of the world, in this band.
Which would make that the root chakra.
There's everything about Sedona that's root chakra. It's all red, and the power here is Kundalini, transformative power. Everything about it is screamed root chakra.
Yeah. I got you.
And it's my belief that the focal point of that Kundalini that you find here in Sedona is in the court of the king, because the king himself, one of his forms that he traditionally takes is as pure Kundalini energy. And so he resides in his throne as that pure Kundalini energy.
Bizarrely, I had talked to somebody not too long ago about Kailas and being the crown chakra. But bizarre that when you drive that, as you say, the opposite end would be the root chakra down, hitting Sedona. That's incredible, Mark. So tell me about the royal road of the King of the World.
Yeah, well, the royal road is that 20-degree band that I just mentioned. And because all along that, you find places that have, in the past, been associated with some version of the King of the World. These are all the versions of the King of the World. They're all the King of the World. He takes many different forms. And there are actually legends of one manifestation of the King of the World, be it Osiris or Dionysus, actually traveling all around the world and spreading the sacred wisdom, the sacred knowledge of God and how to find God. In fact, even Tausi Malek, the peacock angel, he flew around in this band, and he went around and he blessed the world. And so I believe that this 20-degree band is the royal road of the King of the World. And the King of the World, you see, is an energy that's a balanced energy. It's male and female together. And so the center of the earth is where the yin and the yang comes together. Now, why I say that is because the King of the World is also the collective consciousness of humanity. And those times, well, let's go back to Lemuria time, when people were more connected to higher guidance, a higher divinity, more spiritually inclined. At that time, the King of the World, who is the collective consciousness of us all, is associated with the Christ or Melchizedek. Now, later on, when we developed the ego, the individual, the separateness to spirit, then this collective consciousness, this King of the World, became associated with Satan and Lucifer. And now, as we're moving back to the Christed state of consciousness, then the King of the World will also be the Christ again. So he's both. He's Christ and he is Satan. He is both together. He is higher self and lower self. And we reflect him because we are both ourselves. We are both Christ and Satan, are we not? So he is the collective consciousness of us all. In theosophical literature, they say that his consciousness actually merged into the world. And it just was transmitted in the center of the world. So it's his consciousness that actually directs all the affairs of everything that happens in this world. And he does it from an etheric level. That's why we're not aware of him. But as we become more etheric, as we open up to the etheric dimensions, we are going to become more aware of him. And this is what I saw on the Wachuma. I went into his etheric dimension, which is always there. And now people that are becoming more psychic aware and opening up their extrasensory vision are having experiences of that dimension. And I think this is part of the work that I'm doing, is preparing people for that. I believe that that dimension is the original Garden of Eden, which, of course, we left. The Garden of Eden didn't go anywhere. It's always been on that vibratory frequency, on that dimension. We left it because when we became more contracted, and we became more intellectually inclined, less intuitive. But as we become more intuitive and more psychic again, then we will be aware of that dimension.
Wow. It's amazing stuff, Mark. Mark, what do you hope to, either the readers to get from the book, or what do you hope the book to achieve? Is it to bring attention to the Hopi, to explore these concepts, or a bit of everything, really?
It's a bit of everything. I want to make it clear that my belief is that Sedona is Palatkwapi, the city of the Star People. I want people to come here with that perception with that perspective. And if you come with that perspective, you can see in the red rocks, you can see faces, you can see forms of animals, you can see temples, you can see all kinds of stuff. If you have that perception, I want to be able to take people into the court of the king. And I want people to know more about the Hopis, how valuable they are. I want people to know how important the Yezetis are. The Yezetis say that they were the first people. And I want people to know the truth about the peacock angel. And I want them to know that the peacock angel is manifested as the king of the earth all over the world. There's all different kinds of manifestations of him. He is not this Satan being. And so if people can have that perception and that understanding, then they're not going to be so apt to want to convert them and to destroy them like the Muslims have. So much of my work is about helping and trying to save the Yezetis right now. So these are the ideas that I want to communicate through the book.
Beautiful. I guess last question before we wrap things up. Tell me about the Zuni elder Clifford Mahooty. I would love to have Clifford on the show, but I think he's a great guy and he's got a great way of orating this knowledge. But there's an interview with him in the back of the book, Clifford Mahooty.
Yeah, Clifford is quite a fascinating character. And although so many of the elders in the different tribes have a lot of ET information, they're not allowed to freely talk about it. Clifford was living on Zuni reservation when he started talking about it.
Sure.
And that's taboo. And so what happened was that they basically kicked him off the reservation. And so he lives about 20 minutes from here in a place called Camp Verde. So this is where I went down and I did the interview with him. And he really talks about the ET connections, the ET contacts that the Zuni mean, many of them. And in fact, you can find this association piece in the tribe of Arizona through the Zuni, through the Hopi, through the Yavapai, through the Navajo. They all talk about it. It isn't just Hopi. It isn't just Zuni. It is all of them. Yeah. And what's interesting is the Yavapai people, they do a dance today that they was taught by the aliens that visited them, and they put bags over their head to kind of give them this bulb-like look. They all look like graves, So like those were the aliens that came and taught them. So you find this all Northwest.
No worries. Do you think then that when Clifford's like forgive the modern slang, but like a whistleblower on this data, do you think then that Clifford feels it's time is right for humanity to know this? Is that his agenda? He wants humanity to know this knowledge?
So, because otherwise he would have just shut up, stayed on the reservation, right? But no, he's out there. He's in the forefront. He's speaking at conferences. He's open with the information. If you want to make an appointment for an interview, he's totally open for it. So, I believe that feels like he is a vehicle, and he is actually he believes that he is a member of the Kachina clan, which was the extraterrestrial clan. So he's kind of a spokesperson for the clan of the extraterrestrials, the Kachinas.
Mark, give us the name of your book, where we can get it, and obviously I want you to give out your websites. You've got two great websites there, one for the Gnostic stuff that we covered on the last show, and also the Sacred Sites Journeys as well.
Well, my book is Sedona, City of the Star People, and you can get it from me if you go to my website, which is also the website of my Gnostic Temple organization that I'm the head of. If you just go to the web store on that website, and you can purchase a copy of the book, and you can also learn about our temple organization as well. So that's one way. Starting in November 1st, which is just a few days away, it'll be featured on Amazon.com, so you can go there. And you can also get it through my publishers, Adventures Unlimited Press, and they have a website, adventuresunlimitedpress.com.
Sure.
And I'd like you to visit sacredsitesjourneys.com, because that lists all of the sacred journeys that my wife and I have been leading for the last 22 years or so. And we go all over the world. And one reason that we travel to these places like Egypt and Peru
sure.
is to give people initiations, to open them up to the energy, so that they can evolve and open up to the higher parts of themselves and the other dimensions. And so it isn't just one of these tours where you take a lot of photos. Believe me, we connect with the strongest temples, the greatest teachers of these areas, and it's a life-changing experience every time. So come to our website and see if any of those tours that we're leading attracts you, and please join us.
I'm looking at the past tours, Mark. It's amazing we haven't bumped into each other before physically, because I've just been to all of these places in the same reason, looking at
everything in its right time. James.
Yeah, sacred sites. I mean, they really are the greatest sacred sites. I mean, you got Silbury Hill, Newgrange, Glastonbury, Peru, Egypt. It looks fascinating. I mean, Malta as well. I'm going to Malta in December. I've got 2 months and I just love Malta. I actually might even move there. I don't know. I mean, I just think it's a beautiful place. Home of the Templars, obviously, Mark. The history there, the history in Malta is layered from antiquity, all right, to 4000 BC onwards, right through with the Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Romans, the British.
Those temples there, we don't know how old they are.
They could well be older.
They could be many, many thousands of years old. I mean, they give I think an estimate of 3000 BC. I think they're much older.
Yeah. Really I've never seen a place.
And in fact, a lot of them all people, the esoteric historian, that's what they believe.
Yeah. I never seen a place with so many layers of history either, like such as Malta. But great to see that, Mark, and great to see somebody doing a tour like that. It looks definitely unique. Mark, I'm going to wrap it up at that. So sacredsitesjourneys.com, gnostictemplars.org, and if you can catch Mark's book on his website, then Sedona, a city of the star people. Mark, great to talk to you again. Great to see you again.
And invariably, they found that most all the clans had been to this sacred city called Palatkwapi at some point.
Sure.
And they talked about how it was a great megalithic sacred city where the Kachinas taught them the secrets, the mysteries of the universe, the mysteries of human evolution, and so many of the rituals and sacred dances that the Hopis do today were taught at that time by these Kachinas. So the Kachinas, apparently, these ETs, were in physical body right down to the time of the European invasion in North America, which is not that long ago.
Wow.
But anyway, I did a bunch of research once I heard the legend of Palatkwapi, because, first of all, Palatkwapi means the red house. With you.
Great to see you this time as well, Mark. We didn't get to see each other last time, so we're on the TV link today. Mark, tell us about your new book. I think this is incredibly interesting, and it kind of gels in with a few things I'm interested in too.
Well, it's based on the Hopi legend of Palatkwapi. Palatkwapi is ancient city that was built by the Star People, which the Hopis today know as the Kachinas. And they say in their legends that the Hopi clans, once they reached the continent of North America, it said that they came island hopping across the Pacific. Once they reached North America, they divided up into clans, and they went on migrations throughout the Western Hemisphere. And eventually they met back together in the place they're living now in northern Arizona, and they compared notes. Okay, where have you been, and what was it like? And do was basically start start in Hopi land and retrace the steps of these different clans, and it led right back here. So it was pretty obvious this was the place. So one reason that I did this research, and one reason that I believe that Sedona is Palatkwapi, because I have been seeing temples here since I first started coming here back in 1987. Initially, I went into Boynton Canyon, which is the largest vortex here, and I was drawn to climb the side of the canyon to a ridge, and I sat down and I meditated and prayed, and apparently my third eye became open. I opened my eyes, and everywhere I looked, I saw temples, incredible temples. It's like temples that were built out of the red rock, and a lot of them were carved with certain images. They had symbols, and Sedona is like living in a big red house.
Sure, granted.
Gigantic red house, right? Everything's red here because of the red rocks. And so I thought there was probably some connection, because I also know that Sedona is very, very sacred to the Hopis. And then I started studying the path that these different clans took when they left Palatkwapi, as they were moving or traveling to where they are today in Hopi land. I consistently studied that route of all the different clans, and I found out that the route was pretty much the same, and then in each description of the route there were these place names. Well, today those place names are the cities or the towns in Arizona. So,
wow.
So all I had to
Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio TV. This is your host James, and I'm super excited to have a returning guest today. It's been a long time since we spoke, and we're going to talk to Mark Amaru Pinkham. We're going to talk about his latest book. Mark has got two awesome websites. He has GnosticTemplars.org and SacredSitesJourneys.com for his tour to sacred sites around the world. And as I just learned, he runs trips to Ireland, so we're going to have some interesting stuff to talk about. Actually, I wasn't even aware of that the last time I spoke to Mark. Mark is a prolific researcher and into all things esoteric as well. First of all, let's bring our guest on today. Hi, Mark. First of all, very welcome to the show.
Hi, James. Nice to be back.